Hello and welcome to the federal candidates debate for Kitchener South-Hespeler riding. I'm your moderator, Carla Fitzsimmons. Thank you to the candidates who have joined us today. We extend our sincere thanks to Rogers TV and our community partner, Citizens for Cambridge, for making this event possible. Rogers TV will be airing this debate multiple times leading up to Election Day. It is also available on YouTube for residents at their convenience to watch. To access the recording of this debate and the Cambridge debate, along with the candidate information and other resources, please visit citizensforcambridge.org. Also on the website, there are links to the recording of the two town halls of these same two ridings with the audience questions. Candidates, we understand that you are individual MPs and do not speak for the policies, but however, we want to hear what you personally intend to advocate for within your party and in Ottawa. Each candidate will have 1 minute for opening statement, 1 minute to respond to questions, 1 minute for closing statement at the end of the debate. If you wish to respond briefly to another candidate's response, you may request a 30-second rebuttal by raising your hand. We know that the timing is tight, so we want this format to allow us to cover as many wide-ranging topics as possible. Time limits will be strictly enforced to ensure fairness. Speaking order will begin alphabetically by surname and rotate throughout our debate. Our goal is to get through as many questions as possible in the time we have allotted. We begin with opening statements. First up is Valerie Bradford. Valerie, welcome.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with the residents of Kitchener South-Hespeler. My name is Valerie Bradford, and I am the mother of 3 adult children, which I raised as a single parent, and now I've been blessed with 3 adorable grandchildren, which I refer to as dessert. For the past 3.5 years, I've had the honor of serving as the Member of Parliament for Kitchener South-Hespeler, a privilege that I do not take lightly or for granted. Prior to running for office, I had worked as a business development officer for the City of Kitchener for 15 years, where I focused on providing assistance to the business community, particularly the manufacturing sector. Economic development was excellent preparation for being an MP, as it gave me a good understanding of the community, its opportunities and challenges. I hope to have the opportunity to continue my public service as an MP as we face new threats to our sovereignty and challenges to our economy, imposed on us by our no longer friendly neighbor to the south.
Thank you. Lauren?
Yes, thank you, and thank you to the sponsors for holding this debate. It's Democracy in Action. So my name is Lauren Bruce, and I'm here applying for the job of becoming a Member of Parliament. Because throughout this process, this is just like an interview for a job, and ultimately the voters will decide who they want to hire to represent them and be their voice in Ottawa. I'm sure you all know by now we have some important decisions to make. As friends, neighbors, and as Canadians, in the coming days, we have a choice. We can choose one that will restore our strength, rebuild our purpose as a nation, position our workplaces and communities for shared prosperity, and there are real threats on the horizon. There are real threats to our way of life, threats to what it means to be a Canadian. We need to protect our access to health care, protect extended parental leave, strong and secure public pensions, worker health and safety, environmental protections, employment insurance, and the list goes on. As Canadians, we must not take for granted this opportunity during this crisis.
Thank you. Ethan?
Hi, yes, thank you. My name is Ethan Russell. I'm probably the youngest person on this debate stage. I'm only 21 years old, and I'm currently a student at Conestoga College. You know, when this election first got called, it was a little unexpected, but I knew that this was an opportunity where we had to step up and really give a voice to this community. I've seen for far too long as young people like myself or people like my parents have been simply forgotten and discarded. I don't come from a silver spoon. I come from a working class family. My parents never got the opportunity to go to college. My father didn't finish high school until well into his adult years. And I've grown up in that experience, and it's taught me a lot. I'm now at Conestoga College studying early childhood education, and I've only seen this repeated across my work. I want to help this community. I want to stand with it, whether we have threats from the south or threats here in our own country. I want to support working people I want to support us as a united nation, not divided based off of random things that we think about from 5 years ago.
Thank you. Matt?
Hi, my name is Matt Strauss. It would be the honor of my life to serve as your member of parliament, and I'm very happy to introduce myself to you now. I was born here in Kitchener. I grew up in Hespeler. I'm raising my family in Hespeler now, and I've been a physician serving the area for the last 13 years, as well as a professor at the Regional Waterloo Medical School. I know this community. I've struggled with this community, and your struggles are my struggle. And we have to be honest, the struggles have gotten harder over the last 10 years. The cost of living is out of control. Crime is creeping into previously safe neighborhoods. My own car was stolen from the hospital parking lot. The cost of housing has doubled. We need serious change in this country to bring hope to folks. Over the next hour, I'm excited to share with you some concrete policy proposals that myself and the Conservative Party have to bring real change to Canada.
Thank you. And Randall?
Hi, my name is Randall Williams, and I'm the candidate for the People's Party of Canada. I'm a father of two, a stepfather of two, and a grandfather of one who's autistic. So I know that the healthcare system, especially for autistic children, is very lacking. People that I've talked to in my walk-arounds, not debating, but canvassing, have given up on voting. They say there's no difference between the two parties. They're just more of the same. Nothing really changes. In fact, 38% of the electorate have given up altogether. The status quo no longer works for them. The PPC wants to be that change. We will cut wasteful spending, cut the taxes, eliminate corporate welfare, and strengthen our military. Finally, we will balance the budget in our first year. My name is Randy Williams, and I'm proud to be a candidate for the People's Party of Canada for real change.
Thank you. So now we're going to begin with the first question, future vision for Cambridge and your role as MP. What is your personal vision for the future of Cambridge, and how would you, as the MP, work to make that vision a reality? We're going to begin with you, Lauren.
Excellent question. So, as my fellow candidates have mentioned, I've lived in Hespeler, lived in Kitchener, so I have an intimate knowledge of both communities that make up this great riding. One of the emphasis that I put on when it comes to economic policies is also the socio-economic policies that go along with it. So we have a huge opportunity within this riding, within this region, because we have a diverse economy. So we have the tech industry, we have the health industry, education, with 2 universities and college and whatnot. So working all together, it's a huge opportunity for our region to grow and to thrive. And we're also, perfectly located geographically for transportation and be a transport hub for all of southwestern Ontario. But what I like to emphasize too is that for a strong economy, you actually need a strong social forum as well for people to be able to participate in that economy. So when it comes to healthcare, housing, all the things that businesses look for when they look for the labor pool.
Thank you. Ethan?
Yeah, I agree a lot with what Lauren was saying there, especially on the fact that we here in KW have an incredibly diverse economy. And I think that's an incredibly important point to really hammer on. Canada needs to diversify its economy. We need to move away from just being this extraction economy. We need to be an economy that is bright, vibrant, and of the 21st century. And I think KW as a whole, not just Kitchener, not just Waterloo, not just Cambridge, I think we can lead the charge on that. We've seen us already lead this charge with our tech industry. We've seen our colleges and universities grow, and we've seen our healthcare industry start to expand. I think that we need to really invest further in that expansion, and we need to make KW the shining example of what the modern Canadian economy can be. And I think that starts with the tech industry, but it also starts with the colleges and universities, by looking out to people across the world and say, hey, if you want to do your big research here that's going to change the world, I think we need to say, hey, come here. America might defund you, but we won't.
Thank you. Matt?
I grew up in Hespeler. I live here now. I chose to raise my kids here because Hespeler is the best place in the world to raise children, but it's getting harder and harder for families. I've knocked on, with my team, over 30,000 doors at this point, and people have cried at the doors, stressed out about their mortgage payment or their rent going up. There is a housing crisis, and we need to build homes. The Liberal Party for the last 10 years, I watched the previous debates, they've trumpeted several times that they're putting $50 billion, $70 billion into increasing housing affordability in our country and in this region, and I'm sorry to say it hasn't happened. The price of housing has only gone up. Housing starts are down year on year, and we need to finally get serious about this, finally get serious about building homes so that families can raise children here. Beyond that, I do want to say that I liked what Lauren was saying about it being a transportation hub. I was really appalled when the Liberals said they were going to spend $5 billion on a 4-year plan to build high-speed rail from Quebec City to Toronto, leaving our community out in the cold. I will not allow that to happen. I will fight for this community.
All right. And Randall.
Hi. I've been a long-haul trucker for near 40 years of driving, and I've been all over North America. And what I understand from most communities, they're no different than Kitchener or Cambridge-Hespeler. The issue is that affordability is the #1 issue. Housing prices, jobs, good-paying jobs, especially in small rural towns, is very hard to come by. We would like to, as the PPC, invest in more companies, more investment into our country to create those better jobs. Our education around here is top-notch, and I would like to keep supporting that education. We need more people to be entrepreneurs, and it's very hard to do this in this country. And I would like to see more of that investment into entrepreneurship and businesses by cutting taxes, cutting regulations, and promoting ingenuity. Thank you.
And Valerie.
Yes, thank you. I've always considered Hespeler to be the gem of the region. Hespeler is a very vibrant community. The downtown has hardly any vacancies. It's the only urban hub in this particular riding, so I'm passionate about supporting it. I also really celebrate the industrial base that we have here. We have 2 large Toyota plants here, the only one that makes a Lexus model. That speaks to the quality of our workforce here. We also have the Trades College where we need to really focus more and more on trades education. So we have good sustainable jobs, and I want to advocate more and more for that, and they're under threat with these tariffs. I also echo the concern about the lack of fast rail transit to Toronto. 2 hours on a train is a bad day on the 401, and you lose the freedom. So we need to advocate to have that move out here and connect with Toronto, and I will continue to advocate for that so that we get our fair share of those dollars.
All right, thank you. Now in our second question, we move to tariffs and trade, which a number of you mentioned in your last question. With the recent U.S. tariffs affecting key Canadian industries, what priorities would you urge the federal government to take to protect Canadian businesses, workers, and consumers? Ethan, you'll begin the question.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's a very important question to bring up. My father works in manufacturing, and a lot of the trade that his company does is to the United States. However, his company has also begun to do something that I think Canada also really needs to focus on. They've also started trading with places like Taiwan and Japan. A big problem that these tariffs really do face is the fact that they expose just how reliant on the US we are. I think the #1 way that we need to protect Canadian consumers is simply move away from this reliance. That means, diversifying our trade, just as we need to diversify our local economies. Let's also trade more with Europe, trade more with Asia, trade more with Africa, with South America. I've seen Doug Ford get up on stage and trash on Mexico all day, all night, simply because he wants to get back in America's good graces. Well, why don't we use this as an opportunity to deepen our connections with Mexico, instead of trying to be reliant on this bulwark of an economy that at any moment could just flip a switch and shut us all down.
All right, Matt.
Donald Trump is a bully. He is bullying us. I know something about bullying because I skipped 3 grades and I was by far and away the smallest kid in my class. I know that bullies prey on the weak. They seek it out and they shove that kid around. What I know about how to deal with bullies comes from the movie Karate Kid. I was born in the 80s. If you're getting bullied, you go to the gym, you get stronger, and then you might not even have to punch your bully in the nose. We need to get stronger. He's bullying us because our economy is weak. After 10 years of mismanagement, we're 30% poorer on average than the Americans. We need to supercharge this economy. That means building rail, building LNG terminals, building pipelines, knocking down interprovincial trade barriers and integrating our economy better with our friends overseas. It's been Conservative Party policy for the last 4 years that we should be synchronizing our trade and promoting free trade and free movement with our friends like New Zealand, Australia, and the UK. I think that would go a long way to diversifying our economy, and once we're strong, we won't be pushed around like this anymore.
Randall?
Tariffs are a way of life here in Canada and the United States. This is not new. We've had tariffs all my life, going back and forth between our countries. The idea is to try to tear down the tariffs and make it more equitable. We have this is not a new fact for Canada. In fact, we've had tariffs on US products for many years. What upsets me is a lot of the voters, that politicians are using this as a rallying cry for their own political means. The Liberal government has landlocked our natural resources and manufacturing to just one country. We need to diversify, and we need to do this post-haste. But this doesn't solve the problem right here and right now. As it is right now, we must work with the US and come up with a more equitable trade. The PPC believe in the free market system. We will eliminate supply management, tear down tariff barriers, and between provinces and lower costs for Canadians.
All right, thank you. Valerie?
Yes, excuse me, the tariffs that have already been imposed have already wreaked havoc with our economy, and the uncertainty of what comes next and what other tariffs and what other sectors are really a disruptor to our economy and our economic well-being. Already in the first 9 days when Mark Carney became Prime Minister, he took decisive action to deal with that. He brought the premiers together and got them all to agree that we will finally get rid of interprovincial trade barriers by July the 1st. That will add $20 billion to our national economy. We also have now got agreement to allow tradespeople to move across and work interprovincially, which makes a lot of sense. So those are two things. Also, Canada has negotiated more free trade agreements with other countries in the world than any other G7. We just have to get using them. And Mark Carney has an international reputation and respect. He's already met with Britain and France. We can do this. We'll be a better, stronger country when we come out of this.
Thank you. Before we come to you, Matt has a rebuttal.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I followed the news carefully. I haven't seen any evidence of any interprovincial trade barriers actually coming down. I think that talk is cheap, but it's deeds that matter, not words. So I'm wondering if you could tell us which interprovincial trade barriers have come down, because I've yet to see any evidence of that.
What I said was by July the 1st, already some of the provinces have released theirs, and there is interprovincial trade happening, but they're all supposed to be in effect by July the 1st.
So they could do it today. They haven't done it. I think vote for us, and we'll do it shortly after the election, is words and not deeds. It's time for action and no more words, because they've been promising this for a long, long time, and it hasn't happened.
We have actually been trying for many years. When I was working in economic development to accomplish this, the barriers were the premiers. They were acting like spoiled siblings, everyone wanting the biggest piece of the pie. It's only been this crisis that has forced them to focus and give up some of the preferential pricing that they have for things like, booze, alcohol, wine, those sort of things, to make things more affordable for Canadians and give them more choices and access. And the trade barriers have created this opportunity.
Okay, I'm going to throw it to Randall because you put your hand up.
I have one rebuttal to that. You have landlocked, the Liberal government has landlocked our natural resources, and they cannot ship it. The ports have been closed to LNG. We can't ship our oil to any other country but the United States, and that needs to change. And 10 years of Liberal rule has not changed that. And Mark Carney has come out and said he will not repeal those bills that stop the pipeline and the LNG ports.
Matt, then you, because Matt.
So Ms. Bradford has said by her own admission, she's been trying to do this. The Liberals have been trying to do this for 10 years, and they haven't done it for 10 years. And it's the definition of insanity to be trying the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. They've been trying, and I'm sorry to say they have failed for 10 years. It's time for a change in direction and leadership. It's time for a change at the top.
And the Conservatives before that also failed. So in any case, it is happening now, and we are focused on this, and it's very important that we accomplish this, and I'm confident that it will happen, and Canadians will be better off for it, and we'll have lower prices and more economic opportunity throughout the country.
Now, Lauren, your chance to speak on the topic.
Ethan and I have been patiently waiting fascinating how, you know, this is not my first election as a candidate, and I seem to be seeing the same movie over and over again between the blue and the red team. So you guys couldn't do it, you guys couldn't do it. The fact of the matter is, when we look at tariffs and trade, we have to look at it in two different ways. First is absolutely trade and the tariffs, and we need to expand our international markets, look for other trading partners. And I had major concerns during 1988 back then about free trade, and the same concerns under USMCA. And now we've seen that come to fruition. The other part of the conversation is absolutely interprovincial trade barriers. And then we also have to have really strong policy to protect those that are affected right now. Because when it comes to trade and negotiations, I've been involved in many very complex negotiations, and they do take time, and they are complicated, and it's not an overnight thing. But in the meantime, we need to affect the workers, and businesses are affected right now, because this is a 4-year thing. Trump is not going away.
All right, thank you. That was some lively debate. Now we're going to move to housing and affordability. What targeted measures will you and your party take to address the rising costs of living, especially affordable housing for lower income, middle class income, first-time buyers, and young families? And we're going to start the conversation with you, Matt.
Thank you for the question. I think it's the most important one facing our region and our country. It didn't used to be the case that nobody under 40 could buy a house unless they were left a large inheritance. It's wrong, and we need to change it. As I say, I watched the previous debates. My Liberal colleague promised $50 billion to fix this problem, and it hasn't been fixed. Our plan is as follows. We are going to remove the HST on first-time home builds, and we are also going to incentivize municipalities to cut through the red tape, the bureaucracy, the gatekeepers, the permitting, the zoning, all of these things that form 2/3 of the cost of building a new house in our country right now. So we have to get rid of all of that red tape and then let builders build. That's the only way forward. The way we're going to incentivize it is by telling municipalities, look, you're getting gas tax transfers. You're going to get more money if you permit and build more. You're going to get less money if you do less. We're going to pay for results instead of bureaucracy.
All right, Randall?
I agree with Matt with a lot of what he just said there. Housing is a real problem in our country, and the present government has made this incredibly worse over the past 10 years. A lot of young couples have given up ever owning a home. A lot of our single young children, adult children, cannot even move out of the house because rent is too expensive. More government housing is not the answer, because to build them means more taxes on the rest of us. The PPC will reduce the Bank of Canada target rate of inflation, respect local planning, prioritize and dismantle Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, which adds a lot of money to your mortgage, restrict foreign home buyers, and most of all, cut immigration, which is the leading cause of what's going on right now, and are able to correct this crisis. Eliminate taxes on new homes and work to cut the GST on home building supplies. This will allow home builders to build much faster.
All right, thank you. Valerie? Oh, there's a rebuttal. I'll let you take it.
So you had mentioned something there that I found interesting, respecting local communities. What happens if a local community asked to build no homes? What if tomorrow KW said, we're not going to allow a single other home to be built? Under what you had just said, well, we have to respect local communities. We can't build government housing, so if they are not going to say yes to any builders, we cannot build. But doesn't that just put us deeper into this hole?
That's not what I said. I said local planning. We need to work. As a federal government, we can only have so much control over what the municipalities and the province do. That falls under their jurisdiction. But we can make products less and less expensive to build the homes. Planning is a central industry between the municipalities and needs to be dealt that way. That's called respecting the municipalities to increase home purchasing ability.
Getting back to something Dr. Matt Strauss said and cutting red tape, it's interesting because his leader, Pierre Poilievre, said that he would eliminate the Accelerator Fund. The Accelerator Fund exactly did that. Municipalities were rewarded for getting rid of red tape and building houses very, very quickly, which they've done. Kitchener met their goals and exceeded them, so they just recently got more money from the Accelerator Fund. So we've already done that. We are going to be getting back in the home building business like we did after World War II, we were able to actually build a lot of affordable homes very quickly to accommodate our veterans. We can do this again. We'll use modular technology, which exists even here in Cambridge. It allows us to do construction year-round and get homes built fast. We are going to eliminate the GST on homes under $1 million for first-time home buyers. That'll free up $50,000 for those purchasers. And we are also delivering a middle-class tax cut, saving a two-income household up to $825 a year.
Okay, and Matt, you have a rebuttal?
The Housing Accelerator Fund pays for process. It doesn't pay for results. We want to incentivize results. The reason why we need to incentivize results is we aren't getting results. Housing starts are down in this country. The cost of housing is up. If this approach worked, why hasn't it worked?
I would argue under our new plan, we plan to build 500,000 homes a year. And that's the commitment. It's going to take a lot of work, and but we're determined to make it happen because Canadians need it to happen.
Okay.
And the problem's only gotten worse. So new commitments, new processes, new funding aren't going to do it. We need results.
Randall, and then back to you.
Exactly what I was going to say. The process, you've been saying this for many, many years. Way back in 2015, we can go back, you're going to be building all these new houses. It's never happened. So this is just more of the talk, more of the same talk, lack of a better word, that we as citizens are just tired of.
And Valerie, you'll get the last word.
I would argue that you could look at Hespeler, you could look at Maple Grove Road, you could look at the end of Guelph Avenue. You'll see a lot of new homes that have gone up. And the reason for this is, the reason we're particularly challenged is the GTA has discovered paradise out here in Cambridge, and they've moved out. They moved out during COVID. That inflated our housing prices because it's supply and demand. So it's because it's such a desirable community, as we've all said, it's in big demand. But if you look around, Mattamy Homes reads, there's a lot of new homes going up.
Okay, I'm going to move over to, because of time, I'm going to move to Lauren. It's your turn.
I'm not sure whether to interject during the conversation or wait for my turn. What I've seen from the Conservatives and the Liberals over the years, and again, this is not my first rodeo, is they're looking for a market solution to a market problem. And when you treat homes and shelter as a commodity, this is what happens. So rewind it a little bit. In 2015, I had the opportunity to interview the three mayors from Cambridge, Kitchener-Waterloo. And I said, you know, you're putting out your plans for the year. What's your number one priority? Housing. That was 10 years ago. My daughter, who's probably the same age as Ethan, can't get into the market. We're talking about people who are paying rent that is about 40% of their income. So you can give a GST rebate on $1 million home. It's not going to help the people that are paying $2,000, $2,500, $3,000 a month for rent.
Thank you. Ethan, your turn.
You know, what I am continuously hearing from this side of the debate stage is in the past 10 years, in the past 10 years, in the past 10 years. This is not a past 10-year issue. Our housing crisis started in the 80s with Brian Mulroney when he cut the affordable housing starts that the government was making, and then with Chrétinier with the Liberal Party when he ended it. This is a problem that persists longer than Trudeau, Carney, or Harper. This is a problem that is baked into our system. However, this is also a problem that is baked into the municipalities with their planning policy. What I hear from the Conservatives is actually a fine plan. The problem is that it lacks necessary specifics. Our plan really does focus on, yes, you know, that government housing, that social housing that we were building after World War II, but also why are we not talking about these missing middle housings? Fourplexes, mid-rise apartments. We don't need every single housing start to be a high-rise apartment or a single-family home. We need a wide variety, and our plan incentivizes that variety.
And Valerie, you have a rebuttal?
I would argue if you drive around the riding at all, particularly Kitchener South-Hespeler, there are a lot of multi-family dwellings, row houses, townhouses, the gentle density that we're all looking for in our communities. This community is doing a lot of that, and our policies, the federal government policies, encourage that, as do the provincial policies. They encourage multiple units on the same land base. It's more efficient for servicing, it's more efficient for transit, and it's more affordable for families.
And before we move on, Ethan, do you have a
I will agree with that. One thing that I love so much about Kitchener is the fact that it is becoming this middle housing paradise. Kitchener has some of the largest housing starts outside of Toronto, and that's great to see. But that's not enough. And you know, we're seeing places like Oakville that are completely rejecting what we are doing here. I think that we don't just need to say, well, Kitchener's doing it. Yeah, Kitchener's doing it, but it's not going to drive up the prices unless we're all doing it. And that I haven't seen yet.
All right, we're going to move along. Homelessness and encampments is our next topic. Encampments are growing in many cities, and there are there immediate and long-term measures that you would push for to support people experiencing homelessness? So Randall, you begin this conversation.
For me, I haven't really looked too much into this other than the fact that homelessness in Ontario has grown to an unsustainable 80,000 people. And a lot of that has to do with inflation. A lot of that has to do with taxation. A lot of that will have to do with lack of employment. And a lot of that has to do with drugs. People, whether they need medical help or not, they're being left to the wayside. We, the PPC party, understand the problem and we need to fix this. How is multitasked, and we need to work with our municipal partners to come up with a better solution. Just throwing more money at it doesn't fix anything. In fact, throwing more money at it has only made the problem grow. And we need to start taking care of these people and giving them the chance to be better than what their circumstances are right now. And I would like to see that happen.
Valerie?
This is a great problem of concern for all of us in all communities all across Canada, communities of all size. It's very, very complex. You have to look at the reasons for homelessness. They're very, very complicated and complex. It could be addictions, it could be drug use, it could be family breakdown. Like we know even two salaries can't maintain a house. So when the family unit dissolves, then you've got two households that need to function on the same income. It could be lack of employment. It could be mental illness. You have to treat the root cause. It's going to take all three levels of government cooperating together. The solution is supportive housing, so that we build housing with the supports that these people need to recover so that they can get to be independent and function in their own independent living environment. It's going to take a lot of time and effort. Work has already started, but you know, it can't happen fast and soon enough. It's a terrible crisis. You see people sleeping on the sidewalks. It's just unacceptable.
Thank you. Lauren, you're next.
Yep, it's an issue that I've grappled with for many, many years. You know, here we are, one of the richest countries in the world, and we have people suffering on our streets. So, you know, obviously, society, the way it's built, the economic structure, is not providing, you know, the basic human rights and basic needs of survival. And I believe it starts with housing. So once somebody is housed, at least they can start, you know, to have some sort of feeling of self-worth. And then when we apply the wraparound service of the social services that are helping people, whether it's mental health addiction or it's other issues that they may be dealing with. Once you have somewhere to live, then you can begin to get to those resources, get you on your feet, and then we can start talking about employment training and anything else that it takes for somebody to be successful. But you need to have that self-worth and that respect first, and housing is one of those things. So that's when we talk about a mixed housing project, and we're talking about co-op, and we're talking about, you know, or not-for-profit, everything has to be on the table.
Thank you. Ethan?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we talk about long-term solutions, just like Lauren said, we can look to our housing. You know, what I was talking about with this idea of a wide variety of types of housing, it kind of starts there. Because you need that long-term solution to ensure that once we get people off of the streets, that they're not going to end up back there because rent or mortgage prices are far too high. But I think we also need to talk about, like, yeah, you know, like Randall said, how much money we're spending into this. Because in Finland, they took a approach called Housing First, where they simply, first things first, give people a house. And you know what? It was cheaper than not doing that. So I agree. Let's do the economically sensible solution and do housing first. Save us the money. We don't have to invest in shelters where people stay for 3 days and then leave. I spoke to a woman on the campaign trail. She's 65, on Ontario Works. She was taking care of her sister-in-law. When her sister-in-law died, she got kicked out of her apartment. Now she doesn't know where to go because we don't have those housing supports to put people like this in.
Thank you. Matt?
Thank you. It's a really important question. In some ways, it is very complicated. In some ways, it is very simple. There is a wide social science literature about the causes of homelessness. And the single variable that always rises to the top as being most correlated to the rate of housing in any particular of homelessness in any particular jurisdiction is the cost of housing. If you double the cost of housing, the rate of homelessness will go up. And that has happened in Canada over the last 10 years because of reckless liberal policies to do with money printing, to do with the red tape that we've been talking about, but also they broke our previously very functioning immigration system. So if you bring 1 million people into the country and you only build 200,000 houses, the price of housing skyrockets, and that leaves the most vulnerable in our society out in the cold. I have some expertise in terms of addictions medicine. I can also say that their drug and crime policies have been a disaster for those vulnerable people who sometimes end up on the street and then sometimes end up being victimized by fentanyl dealers and violent criminals. So there are lots and lots of things we can do, but it does come down to housing. My colleagues on either side of me are correct.
You did raise your hand. Do you want to rebut?
Yeah, and it's not a rebuttal. It's actually, I want to emphasize what Ethan was saying, because I did study the program in Finland as well and what they were doing. And, you know, not only, bottom line, they were helping people, but the other bottom line is the bottom line, as like you were suggesting. Once that was established, what it costed to do that program, to help these people, was less than what it would have cost the society to treat those people, because they were, you know, in need of medical assistance or you know, first responders, or, you know, dealing with addiction, all the things that go around those services. So the actual cost of that society was less by doing that program. So thanks for bringing that up, Ian. Yeah.
So that kind of moves into our next question about supportable housing to help with mental health and addiction. So do you support increased investment in supportable housing with on-site mental health and addiction services? If so, how would you try to expand that access? And this question, you begin, Valerie.
Absolutely, I support that. We have some excellent examples here in our region. The YWCA has some supportive housing in my riding on Block Line. House of Friendship is going to build a tremendous new facility with that, providing on-site support for these people to be successful, to overcome their addictions, to overcome whatever issues are preventing them from perhaps getting a job. There's work that can help them with that. But first, of course, they have to be housed so they can be secure. And then you can bring the other resources. But if you have all that on site, then the people can access it. If you're homeless, you can't access these services. So the key is to bring the wraparound supports to where the people are living, where they can easily access it. It's the only way to do it. And we've seen successes in our neighborhood, and we need to continue to fund those things, which the federal government has done, bring money to bear, and private-public partnerships work as well.
Thank you. Lauren?
Yep, that brings me back to when I was talking to an individual at the door the other day about sometimes the work you do in between elections is just as important as election time. So in the past, I've been the president of the Waterloo Regional Labor Council, long-term executive board member, and we partner with the United Way as a local nonprofit organization to help all of those services that are within our region. And they all do incredible work, and so we would partner with them and help them out in any way we could with our support group. And that's what community involvement is to me anyways, is to get involved with all your different community organizations and work together and coordinate and do what you can. So absolutely, Val, I do agree with first and foremost, if the housing is provided first, and if you can bring those wraparound services to where the people need it, it's you know, lack of a better term, like a one-stop shop kind of thing, and so that people can access those services. But again, it's working with those community partners within the region locally. And so from a federal point of view, we want to work with our provincial, municipal, and our local organizations as well.
Thank you. Ethan?
Yeah, so as I had said with my previous mention, we talked about Finland and how their supportive housing program has not only reduced costs for the government, but also almost nearly eliminated homelessness. Well, now let's talk a little bit about Vienna, because after World War II, in the post-war economic boom, Vienna built a ton of socialized housing from the government. Now, last I had checked, this was pre-pandemic, so mind me, I had just thought about this, about a third of people in Vienna live in social housing. And these are people of all walks of life, simply because it's there. And as much as we need supportive housing, but I think it needs to be integrated with our larger housing policy. We need socialized housing for everybody, anybody who needs it. And those who need that extra push, who need that extra help, can then just get it right then and there.
Thank you. And Matt.
The short and simple answer is that yes, I support housing and rehabilitation programs for folks who are struggling with mental illness and addictions. I'm in support of any results-based, data-driven program with proven results that helps those folks. Every person who suffers from addiction or mental illness and then winds up homelessness, it's suffering on top of suffering. It's wrong. We failed them as a society. I think the word root cause came up a little bit, and that was such a simple answer. So I want to use 30 seconds to just refocus a little bit to say that there have been times in our society where addictions were not the crushing issue that they are now. It's really become a crisis. I have lost loved ones. I have lost patients due to this problem. And underlying it all, folks talk about the rat park experiments and the idea that addiction is begot by social isolation, alienation, lack of meaning. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone in our community who coaches softball or joins Big Brothers or leads a Boy Scout troop, because it's that community kind of stuff that prevents this problem in the first place.
Thank you. Randall?
The issue that a lot of people, I agree with what Matt said, and mostly what everybody else says. I agree that the united we can help out our neighbors. That's a moral staple of Canada that's always been there to help out each other. What I've seen firsthand is the explosion of drugs into our communities, and most of that is coming from China. That needs to be stopped. These safe injection sites have proven they're not doing anything but causing more harm. And that needs to be done away. We need to come up with a good plan of rehabilitation, homes starting, you don't get them off the street. But if they need rehabilitation, they need to get off the drugs, then we can work with them once they're clean to help them move forward.
Thank you. Still with housing, we're moving over to the senior aspect. As Canada's population ages, will you commit work to ensure all seniors, particularly those in the lower incomes or special support needs, have access to safe and affordable housing? Lauren, you begin this question.
Well, I can begin by saying it took 10 years, a decade, as I was a lobbyist for the Canadian Labour Congress to get improvements to the Canada Pension Plan. Now, through Conservative governments, Liberal governments, they drag their feet. Some would nod their head and say yes, then nothing would get done. But we were persistent. It took 10 years. We got improvements. We're hoping for more, but not quite there. When we talk about fixed income, a senior population, whatnot, I had a conversation with the director of the food bank here in Waterloo Region, and I was saying, how does the demographics? I know the numbers have gone up. Nice if we put you out of business, but it's such an important service you provide. But anyways, I said, so what's the demographic that's growing the most that you're seeing in this day of economic trials and tribulations? And she said it's seniors. It was the number one growing demographic that was accessing food banks, because either they might be facing an increase in rent, and again, fixed income, right? And their cancer pension plan is fixed, so they weren't able to take it on. So I thought that was a really telling sign of what's going on economically here in our region and across the country.
Thank you. And Ethan?
I mean, yeah, from everything that I've said, I hope it's clear that I support the supportive housing things that we need to do in this region. And when I was talking to that elderly constituent about her struggles, it was that she was on Ontario Works, needed a subsidized apartment building, and couldn't get one. She was on the wait list for supportive housing, but then it turns out she actually got taken off of the list because the paperwork got lost. She lost 2 years of a 7-year wait list. But why is the wait list even 7 years? We need to build not only a ton of supportive housing, but also specific supportive housing. We need supportive housing meant specifically for, elderly people. People who aren't so in need of a long-term care home, but also people who do need some place to go when they are on, fixed income or ODSP or Ontario Works. Instead, we simply just let them to the wolves and told them to fend for themselves in the supportive housing, dearth that we have right now.
And just to build on that, even also the accessibility of this housing, right? So it has to be accessible. It's one thing to, provide a supportive housing, but you have to renovate or you have to have it accessible for folks as well. So that's part of the deal as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
completely agree. My grandfather, back before I was born, he broke 2 bones in his back. And he can luckily still walk, but some days are so painful he's bedridden. And he is luckily able to be uplifted by my grandmother and by my aunt. However, if we didn't have them, you're right, there would be no, not only would the supportive housing not be there for him, but the supportive housing that exists wouldn't be accessible. And I've talked so much with so many people in both my own work about how so much in this region just isn't accessible.
Matt?
Yeah, I want to say that the housing crisis affects us all. It affects young families, it affects students, it affects new Canadians, and it affects seniors. It is particularly tragic in the case of seniors, and I've met seniors at the door, once again, honest to goodness, who have cried. I'm thinking of a woman in a bungalow in the Fisher Mills area who told me that she's on disability, her husband is on pension, and they're looking after her elderly mother and 2 cats. And if they get rent evicted from that $2,300 a month bungalow, she said, we are going to be 3 senior citizens and a cat living in a car. And they don't have the opportunity to make more money. The life that they thought they were going to have has been stolen from them by the inflation and by the housing crisis. So it hits seniors particularly hard. All I can say is, but when every single person is having this issue all across Canada, the middle class, the lower class, the students, the young families, the seniors, we got to deal with the giant root problem, which is there are not enough houses for everyone, and we have to do whatever it takes to build them.
Thank you. Randall?
I agree with Matt. One thing that a lot of people are overlooking here now is the mass influx of immigration, millions per year. And they don't seem to have a problem finding houses. Issue is that leaves other people out in the cold. We need to start cutting back on immigration until we can fix this housing crisis that we're in, not just for the young, but for the old also. I would like to see more older people be able to stay in their homes by cutting their taxes, cutting their regulations that they have to deal with, increase their pension, increase their old age security. These things can be done. We need to cut the immigration and cut spending to foreign lands. That frees up more money for the citizens here at home. They paid into this tax base their entire life. It's time that they deserve the respect of having a home.
Matt, then Ethan.
Randall, I just want to make the point, you said you didn't think immigrants were having a hard time finding houses. I promise that they are. We saw horrible things like the mayor of Brampton saying that they had to shut down a rental unit where they were I hate to use the word, storing 18 people in a basement. My mother came as a refugee to Canada. We're so grateful that this place is a place of refuge. When my grandfather came, he was able to buy a house after 6 months of working in a factory. And it's just a scandal that we're bringing young people from all over the world here now on a false bill of goods. If there's no houses for them, it's not fair to them, and it's not fair to our seniors.
And then Ethan?
I would never thought I'd say this, but I must agree with Matt Strauss here. He is correct. I mean, the immigrants that I know, they're not just being given the keys to homes, they're still struggling. We have these people who are living in deplorable conditions because we promised them that this would be a great life, and then we didn't sell them that. But I also think this idea that we're entirely focusing the problem on it's immigrants, it's immigrants, it's immigrants, ignores the fact that the government has defunded housing for the past 30 years.
Well, my rebuttal is that how is bringing more immigrants going to solve this problem? Both Matt and you just agree that there is a problem and bringing more immigrants is going to help?
I mean, I do believe that both me and Matt, I don't want to speak for Matt, but I don't think our point was to bring more immigrants. I actually do personally support cutting back on the number of international students and the number of temporary foreign workers programs, because we're treating these people like slaves. We're abusing them. We're treating them like nothing just to fund our universities. However, that doesn't mean that they're really the blame. I think that we need to come at them with compassion, and we need to come at them with an understanding of, that they're struggling here too.
I'll let you respond.
Well, I just want to say, I did think this would happen, and I do agree with my young colleague, Ethan. The housing problem has many facets, and breaking the immigration system is one of the problems that are one of the facets, and we do need to address it. I was just making the point that the system that we have now is not good for young newcomers to Canada either. It's unfair to them as well as to senior citizens.
Okay, and I'm going to let Valerie end the topic.
Yes, and I do want to bring a different perspective to this. It is a very complex issue and very troubling. So when I was working at the city years ago, and when all the new condo towers started to be built in downtown, everybody said the seniors are going to move out of their homes in the suburbs and they're going to come downtown and they're going to live in these high rises. Well, they don't want to. First of all, it's not their neighborhood, it's not their community, and the reality is they cannot afford to, because if they are living in a home in the suburbs like Kitchener South-Hespeler and it's fully paid for, the only things they worry about are utilities and property taxes, which of course always go up. But they can't afford to go to these other places where maybe they would have more services. We need to provide more services at home so people can safely age in place. So that is more home care services. I know in Sweden they assess people, maybe when they turn 80, what kind of resources they need, and then they keep reassessing them because, you know, we get to be the age of high maintenance and require more and more help. So we need to make it easier for people to stay in their homes.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to end with one more rebuttal. I'll let you do it, Matt, because you did put your hand
So
up.
if that senior citizen in the suburb wants to sell their house and they have significant equity built in there and move downtown and pay rent, they would have to pay capital gains taxes potentially on that house or their other assets. So I'm just wondering, were you in favor of increasing capital gains taxes on such individuals when you voted for it, or are you against it when it was recently repealed?
First of all, Matt, there has never been capital gains tax on your principal residence. That's a basic Canadian thing, and that's not going to change. So if they sold their house, there would be no capital gains tax. And actually, in the interest of affordability, what we've done is remove the potential increase that we had on a higher rate of capital gains and brought it back to 50%. So the first $250,000 of capital gains is tax-free. So that's why it's advantageous over interest income or earned income.
But could you just let me know, were you for it when you voted for it and now you're against it, now that it's gone away? Or like, what is your position on that capital gains tax increase?
I thought at the time that it was fair the way it was written. But, you know, given that the economy has since changed as well, sometimes you have to modify policies to reflect the current reality. And we're in a different reality now.
All right. End that conversation there. We're going to move ahead to news. Misinformation of all types in media is common. Do you and your party agree to support the CBC? To help keep citizens informed, hold politicians accountable, and work to help maintain, enhance, and develop a unique sovereign Canadian culture? This question begins with Ethan.
Yeah, I mean, I have long loved the CBC. The CBC, while perhaps some of their election coverage, as somebody who came as a fan of politics before this, can sometimes be a little, I think it still provides such a valuable service. And if we cut down on the CBC, that only opens us up to more and more American influence. We already see so many of our news organizations either being bought out by American companies or simply peddling the same stuff that American companies are peddling. If we get rid of the CBC, we also lose things like CBC Radio. We lose our ability to promote, actual homegrown Canadian content. And I think whether or not it's fighting misinformation or just growing our own internal cultural market, investing in arts, investing in culture, the CBC is such a powerful tool in that arsenal that I think it needs to be protected.
All right, thank you. Matt?
CBC is two things. It's Radio-Canada and CBC. I listen to Radio-Canada souvent to keep up my French skills. CBC is a different beast. We are paying $1.4 billion for it. I don't think we're getting much value for that money. And then vis-a-vis fighting misinformation, CBC promulgates misinformation. They have promulgated misinformation about me when I became appointed a medical officer of health. They printed things about me that were not true. So did the Toronto Star. My lawyers sent a letter to the Toronto Star and the CBC saying, look, this is verifiably misinformation. It's untrue. You have to correct it. I'm pleased to say the Toronto Star corrected it and printed a correction. The CBC corrected it, but printed no such thing. And they've continued to do it to me and to other conservative politicians. So I don't think that we should put the government in charge of funding media organizations that promote government narratives, and we're just not getting value for that $1.4 billion. To go back to our housing conversation, you can build a lot of homes with $1.4 billion a year.
Thank you. Randall?
I agree with Matt. I would say the CBC, as a taxpayer, I don't want to fund it. I don't watch it, don't really care. And we should put this to a referendum. If what you say is true, that people want this, then you have no problem putting it to a referendum to say, hey, you want to keep paying for this? I bet you the answer is no. So, last I read, only 17% of Canadians actually watch the CBC. They would rather watch, especially the younger generation, YouTube or other, what do you call it, little video clips that they say on Facebook or Twitter, well, X now. The issue is that the government should never be in the business of supplying news to anybody. I'm a free market capitalist. If you can't stand on your own 2 feet, then you fail. It's as simple as that. You have a business model that's relied totally on the taxes of the citizens, and that's got to stop.
All right, over to you.
So I would refute those stats. I think the surveys show most people do support the CBC. And I think this election and this time when we're worried about our sovereignty, this is the time we need journalism, not social media, not YouTube, not following down whatever rabbit hole you choose to. Interesting, when I go to the doors, I find the most informed people are the seniors that are still watching network television and journalism. We need journalists to hold politicians and others to account. I know there's some parties that do not like that. They don't take questions, they're staged questions, etc. And that's very dangerous to democracy. What we're proposing is to have a separate agency. The government won't be the ones that will be governing how much raise the CBC gets or anything. There'll be a standard funding for the CBC that's sustainable, and it will bring it up to the medium of what other countries that have public broadcasting do. CBC is greatly underfunded compared to other public broadcasters.
All right, Lauren, over to you.
Yeah, this brings up a larger issue for me when we talk about monopolizing the media. We already see a concentrated group of media owners that control many of the media platforms here in North America and around the world. And I think it's a dangerous, slippery slope when we start defunding our public broadcasters. We see what's happening down in the States with that administration going after PBS with legal fights and whatnot. And this has been a kind of a bugaboo issue that I've heard from the Conservatives for like 30 years about CBC. And I'm having trouble wrapping my head around the fact that CBC bad, Radio-Canada good. I'm a native Quebecer, so I sort of appreciate that. But again, slippery slope. We deal with monopolies on a lot of different levels. You know, corporations and governments have their hands in our pockets in different ways. Whether it's talking about the social media sites that we deal with, you know, all the companies that own the whole medium. When it comes to the banking structure, when it comes to so many different things, when it comes to housing and real estate and how that's monopolized. I mean, we have to be very careful how we're going down this road.
All right, so because we're tight for time, we're going to do no rebuttals. We're actually going to move into closing statements. So beginning with you, Matt.
Thank you so much, Rogers, for hosting this debate. I think it was really important that folks had a robust exchange of ideas to hear the significant policy differences and to understand, I'm sorry to say, the failures of the Liberal record over the last 10 years. We are in a housing crisis. We have a concrete plan to build more homes by incentivizing municipalities to do that, by decreasing taxes on new builds. We didn't get to speak very much about healthcare, which of course is very close to my heart as a physician. I want to say I have expertise in it. I know how to help fix it, and I'd be passionate to do that on your behalf because the care that folks are receiving in our community right now is not right. Also, we have to fix the problems with crime and the problems with cost of living, which go down to the inflation and the waste and mismanagement, which we didn't get to speak very much about. So we have strong policies to address all of this. I hope that on April 28th, you'll put your trust in me and also your vote. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Randall.
First of all, I'd like to say that I want to thank Rogers and Cambridge for Citizens for this opportunity. Canada is in a lot of trouble right now, and it's not just Trump, because this went down the wayside more than a year ago. The truth is, Canada needs real change, not more of the same. Most Canadians know our country has been going back and forth between the two leading parties basically my entire lifetime, and nothing's really changed. The People's Party is the only party committed to less government, lowering taxes, most of all, putting Canadians first. We will balance the budget, cut wasteful spending. We will protect our freedoms, protect our national security and foreign interference, and restore prosperity to our nations. My name is Randall Williams, and I'm the candidate for the PPC here in Kitchener South-Hespeler. Only together can we build a brighter future. Thank you.
Thank you. And Valerie?
This is the most consequential election of our lifetime, as we face threats to our sovereignty and economy from our formerly friendly neighbor. We need a leader who can unite Canadians and deal with this economic uncertainty in a calm and effective manner. Someone who has experience in dealing with economies in crisis and providing certainty in uncertain times. Mark Carney is just that person and is uniquely qualified for the challenges ahead of us as a nation. Focusing on the economy and workforce development has been something I have spent most of my working life doing, and I view this as a great opportunity as we refocus and strengthen our economy. I want all Canadians to have the same opportunities previous generations have had, including good, sustainable jobs that ensure a comfortable standard of living. I want to contribute to that rebuilding process by continuing to be your Member of Parliament under the new leadership of Mark Carney. I humbly ask for your support on April the 28th.
Thank you. Lauren?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for my co-panelists as well for the discussion. I said at the beginning this was me applying for the job to become your Member of Parliament. So part of my resume is years of experience and a work history that revolves around social justice, as well as having a very good understanding of how the business, how the economy works as well. So throughout my career, and like I said, over decades, I've been involved with many nonprofits within the region to better our community, but also I've been involved in lobbying at the federal level for the Canada Pension Plan, like I mentioned. I'm also a member of the Ontario Health Coalition, and we work to protect and make sure that our healthcare system remains robust and remains public, because it's under threat of privatization. I've also worked with the Ontario Federation of Labour, where we got some improvements to labor law, which was over 20 years due, and part of that was the increase in minimum wage. So there's all kinds of different assets that I've been working on between elections that set me up to give me the skill set and the experience to be an effective MP on your behalf.
Thank you, Lauren. And Ethan?
Yeah, I would like to thank Rogers TV and Citizens for Cambridge for giving us all an opportunity to get up on the debate stage and argue for what we truly believe in. It's been an honor. As has been mentioned by both myself and others, I am the youngest person on this debate stage, but don't let that put any fear in you. I have seen both worlds. I have been studying early childhood education for the past 3 years now, and I have met so many parents who are struggling. I've met so many educators who love this field, who work in this field, who tell me to run for the hills when I tell them I'm studying this. We need to protect what we have, and we need to expand it, and we need to grow it. We shouldn't let the Liberals get a pass for the past 10 years of failure. But we also shouldn't thrust ourselves into the uncertain arms of the Conservatives who have failed us time and time again. We need real, actual, sound-based change. And I only believe that will come from the Green Party of Canada. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank the candidates for joining us today. I want to thank Rogers TV, our community partner, Citizens for Cambridge, and I'm your host, Carla Fitzsimmons. Be sure to check our coverage on election night on April 28th beginning at 9:30 p.m. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Good evening. I am Kathleen Dewick, candidate for the United Party of Canada, and I would be honored to represent you in the riding of Kitchener South-Hespeler. Our bold platform will keep Canada and our citizens free and in a sovereign country, free from foreign interference from unelected officials such as the United Nations, instead of having this post-nation state that Justin Trudeau introduced in 2015. We will clean up organized crime in Canada, as our neighbor to the south requested, and thus restore good trading relations with the United States. That is just good common sense. We will bring production back to Canada and develop our wealth of natural resources, and to increase business, trade, employment, and GDP. We will return to responsible immigration, which is linked to an economic plan that accelerates growth instead of burdening Canadian citizens with extra taxes. We will double military funding so we can protect Canada's borders and have a military that that is internationally respected once again. The United Party of Canada will take us back to our bedrock foundation of the supremacy of God and the rule of law, establishing value in the identity of every Canadian, where truth and justice reign instead of misleading propaganda and scandals. This is our plan and vision for the people of Canada, a true north, strong and free,